camera caught it before anyone smelled it. A manicured hand. In my kitchen, a silver lid lifted just enough for a pinch of white powder to vanish into a pot I'd made with love. If food is how a house says I'm safe, what do you call the person who tries to season it with hate? Tell me if you saw that on your screen, would you press pause or would you run? Before that night, the road bent my life in a way I still taste when I breathe. It was one of those hot mornings that makes a city hum, horns talking to each other. Vendors calling out like choirs, me and my mother, hand in hand at the curb, with a small list, and big plans that didn't cost anything but time. People called her Mama Grace because she carried kindness like it was a bowl. She never spilled thin from years of selling vegetables, eyes warm enough to take the edge off the sun. We stepped forward together, and everything turned to noise, tires, and shouting, and the kind of silence that somehow screams. And I remember gravel under my knees, my fingers on her face, telling her to stay, telling her to breathe, promising I'd hold on tighter next time. A stranger drove us to a hospital, bright lights, serious voices, the smell of antiseptic and prayers, and I learned how long minutes can get when you're counting them with your heart. Days stretched, faith shrank, and one evening she pulled me close with the strength she had left. If anything happens to me, don't let your life stop. Promise me you'll be strong, and tell the doctors to give my kidneys to whoever needs them. I shook my head, because you never say yes to that kind of sentence, not even when the truth is sitting in the room. But she smiled in that brave way she had, squeezing my hand like a seal on paper. 3 weeks later, the machines started speaking a language I didn't want to learn. The doctor's eyes said the rest, and I felt the floor go missing under my feet. At the graveside, I told her I'd keep going. I meant it. And that night, she came to me wrapped in light, not a speech, just a promise. A part of me will find you. Strange words, soft voice, no map. Across town in a house where floors never knew dust and glass was taller than the trees, a man with everything was losing what money can't buy back. Desmond was 33, smart, handsome, the kind of rich that turns airports into hallways, but his body had started taking notes. He didn't write a pinch in his back, a tired that didn't sleep off skin, a shade paler than last week. He ate green things, ran on machines, signed papers with pens that cost rent, but you can't negotiate with your kidneys. The doctor spoke gently, both failing both, and time got thin around the edges. His father, Chief Frederick, stood up straighter than grief and offered what fathers offer when nothing else will do. Take mine, take it today. But the tests said no, and the old man cried like a boy when nobody was looking. And there was Sandra, the girlfriend, with perfect hair and a wallet for a heart, counting the weeks since her last transfer, and asking for money with a voice that never learned the word enough. Do you think that's fair? The call came from another hospital, an email, a name, a form with ink that said, "Let my kidneys help someone live." They ran the match again, numbers that line up the way stars do when sailors need miracles, and the word yes moved through that building like air. Surgery lights, gloved hands, beeps that felt steady for the first time in months, and by dawn, a man opened his eyes to the gift of later. He learned the donor's first name, Grace, put his hand over the tender place at his side like he was holding a promise, and laughed a small laugh that sounded like tomorrow. He didn't know me, not yet. I didn't know him, not yet. But kindness was already walking our way. My world had gotten honest and small, a torn umbrella, a wooden table, a pyramid of oranges that glowed like tiny suns, even on gray days. I sold sweetness in peeled spirals, hands, moving quick voice, steady, because sometimes you have to speak hope until it believes you sweet. Oranges, very sweet, come and try. Some days I counted blessings, some days I counted coins. Every day I carried my mother's last wish, like a candle cupped against wind. That evening, a black car slid to the curb, expensive enough to be its own neighborhood, and I stepped forward with my tray and my best smile because work doesn't care what kind of shine your rims have. The window dropped, and before the man in the back seat could answer, a woman leaned out with the kind of voice that cracks glass. "Get away from the car. Do we look like we buy your silly oranges?" I apologized because power barks and poor people learn early how to lower their eyes. But the man stopped her with a tone that made the air listen. "She isn't begging," he said. "She's working. You should know how to talk to people." The car moved on, but his eyes had paused on me, and I felt it like heat you notice a minute after you walk into a room. Next day, same car only. This time the door opened, and he walked toward me like he was following a thread. "How much for all of them?" he asked, and I did the math. 50,000 naira, sir, and he gave me double. "Keep the change bag. Me a few, give the rest to people who need sweetness today." Kindness hits you in two places at once, your stomach and your spirit. I handed out oranges like confetti. I laughed while I cried. I made plans. That night, 3 men kicked in our door. You know the sound: wood turning to splinters, breath turning to fire, fear doing arithmetic you can't solve. They found the tin under my bed, the new money folded tight. They took the future I'd just started to believe in, and left me on the floor, holding my chest like that could keep it from breaking. Yeah, that happened. Blessings wear ordinary clothes when they don't want to be noticed. Our neighbor Mama Agnes told me she had to leave town to care for her son, and her boss needed a cook while she was gone. Good pay, big house, long drive. "I can cook," I said, "the kind that makes people close their eyes and hum jollof, that shines, plantain that tastes like childhood chicken fried with patience," and I ironed my one good dress until it believed it was new. The gate was taller than my plans, the guard told me to wait, and a shiny car nosed in like it owned the day. The same woman from the roadside stepped out. Heels that never learned dust, sunglasses like a wall. She clocked my face. "You get out. Don't come begging here." Another car rolled in. A familiar voice asked what's going on, and when Desmond saw my tears on his driveway, he said 5 words that felt like a door opening: "Come inside and show me." I cooked like my life could hear me. Spice warm, not loud. Rice grains separate like good neighbors. A kitchen smiling with steam. And when he tasted the sauce, he blinked, and then he smiled. Not a rich man's smile, a human one. "This is perfect." Sandra scoffed, "Too salty." Like insult was a seasoning she couldn't stop using. But he shook his head and met my eyes over the table. "It's not. It's beautiful." He gave me the job and told the staff to treat me like family, and I took both with both hands. Days found a rhythm: morning light on marble birds with opinions in the garden, me learning the house the way you learn a song. Desmond worked long, came home quiet sometimes, standing in the doorway of the kitchen, just to breathe, where it smelled like garlic, and home touching his side like a prayer he didn't want to say out loud. He'd bring me a bag with 2 dresses folded like sorry for the way life has been, tell me it was nothing, thank me for the meals, ask about my neighborhood, and listen all the way to the end. Sometimes I caught him looking at me the way people look at a tune they can't place, but it makes their eyes wet anyway. You know what I mean. Sandra tried new versions of cruel, the soft kind that sounds like advice, the sharp kind that sounds like threat, pulling me aside to tell me she didn't like me, that my stay would be short, that she'd make sure I left on my own. I called Jane at night and whispered tears into the phone. Then I slept. Then I got up and cooked, because grief pays no bills and fear buys no rice. Desmond's friend Kelvin stopped by the office and later, when truth was cheaper, told me that Desmond kept dreaming about me, kept asking what to do with feelings that don't ask permission, kept touching the side of his body like he was remembering a song with my mother's name in the chorus. One morning the house felt lighter, like it had exhaled. I was laying out breakfast when Chief Frederick, older and softer around the eyes, now walked in with a smile that reached me before he did. "Good morning, my dear," then looked around the room like gratitude was a painting on the wall. "1 year today," he said, "1 full year since the transplant. 1 year since God said yes in a room with masks and lights." I froze with the napkin in my hand, because time sometimes does math for you when you're not ready. 1 year. The same season the hospital called to tell me my mother's kidney had been used the same month she told me in my dream that a part of her would find me. I asked about the donor gently, like touching a bruise, and Desmond answered with the honesty of someone who knows the price of breath. A woman who passed, made a wish to help a stranger live. We never knew more than her first name. "What was her name?" I asked, barely above a whisper, and he said it like a blessing. He'd been holding Grace. My knees didn't buckle, but my heart did. I put my hand to my mouth, and the room tilted. My mother's name was Grace. He really ran to the office, to the file, to the line where a simple word had been waiting 11 months to change everything. Donor Grace. He looked back at me like the horizon had moved closer, and all he could do was point. "It was her," he said. "It was your mother. If it were you, what would you have done in that moment? Laugh, fall, pray, all three at the same time?" We did. Chief Frederick held both my hands like a father does when he chooses you. "As long as I live, you will not be alone." Desmond spoke like a man who had finally found a job. "He wanted your mother saved me. I owe her my life. Whatever tomorrow I have is because of her, and I will spend it making sure her daughter sees the world she wished for you." I went to my small room and cried into those new dresses until the air felt light enough to lift. Stick around because what happened next will blow your mind. Sandra had never been good at losing, and jealousy is a hunter that doesn't mind the dark. She saw us in the garden one evening, not touching, just talking and smiling like people who had finally found the end of a sentence they'd been trying to read. And it did something to her that made her eyes go hard. Later, when the house settled, she slid into the kitchen like a rumor lifted. A lid shook a packet of something that didn't belong in soup, and walked out the way cowards do, fast and looking over their shoulder. What she didn't know, what she never thought to ask, was that a tiny camera sat behind a vase blinking quiet as it kept the truth. Morning came, a staffer knocked on Desmond's study like somebody who'd seen a ghost in a mirror, and 10 minutes later we were in the security room watching action we didn't order. He didn't shout. He called her and pressed play and asked her why. She tried to frame a story the way people do when their reflection doesn't match their costume, but lies always run out of breath before the truth does. Desmond told her to leave the house, the life, the story, and this time she knew he meant it. Do you think he should have called the police, or was exile enough? Say it in the comments. I can take it. 2 days later, we stood at my mother's grave with flowers and promises. I told her I'd found him, the stranger she'd saved, that he was a good man, trying to be better, that her kindness had built a bridge I could finally cross. Desmond rested his hand on the stone like he was asking permission the right way, and said, "What a man says when he knows gratitude isn't enough, ma'am. I will spend my life paying this forward. If you allow me, I want to marry your daughter and give her the peace you dreamed for her." He turned to me with a face I trusted and asked me to be his wife. I said yes through tears that washed the dust off a hard year. People like to wrap stories in bows, but real life prefers knots. A year later, we said vows under white and gold, the kind of day that photographs find easy, and when the pastor said, "You may now kiss the bride," the room clapped like relief had an echo. Chief Frederick raised a glass and toasted a woman he never met, to Grace, the one who made a miracle. And I felt my mother near, not in a spooky way, just in that quiet, steady, "you're on the right road" way. Desmond squeezed my hand and whispered, "Thank your mother. She brought you to me," and I laughed, because joy sometimes sounds like a small thunder in your chest. But here's the part that won't lie down and behave, the part I want you to sit with the way I do when the house is quiet. Some people whispered that he owed me because of the kidney, that gratitude isn't love, that power imbalance makes feelings suspicious, that poor girls shouldn't trust rich men who say forever. Do we believe a gift like that can become a marriage without turning to debt? Or do we think love needs a cleaner origin story to count? Another one for you, and please be honest. Should donor families be allowed to know who received, or is anonymity the only way to keep the gift pure? I live with those questions. Some days I answer them one way, some days another. You know what I mean. As for Sandra, she posted pretty pictures with mean captions, called me names, without using my name, played the hero in a story she never learned to read. We didn't press charges, not because it wasn't serious, but because peace sometimes fences a house better than a court date, and we were busy building a life where love is the loudest voice in the room. I still cook like I'm grateful, because I am. Sometimes I take a crate of oranges to the community center and hand out slices to kids whose stories are just getting started. And when they say this is sweet, I tell them to thank the sun. So if it were you, if your mother's last wish had stitched a stranger to your tomorrow, and that stranger turned out to be the person you'd love, would you call that fate or debt, or just a miracle with muddy shoes? Do you think that's fair? Talk to me. Argue with me a little. Tell me the moment you were written off and proved somebody wrong, or the moment you caught yourself judging from a distance and walked closer instead. Drop your thoughts, your pushback, your own stories down below. I'll be there reading every word. And if this story hit you hard, and then held you after like it did to me, like it keeps doing, so it finds the person who needs it today, share it with someone who thinks miracles only happen in churches, subscribe so we can keep telling the kind of stories that fight for the better parts of us. Now it's your turn. Is goodness a circle that always finds its way back, or a straight line you never see the end of?